Good job.
My name is Russell North. I live at 14 Broadway. I do live across from this. And I ask you and the people here too, would you want this in your front yard? I mean, we didn't buy our property. We knew we didn't buy it for this reason. We bought it 10 years ago because it was close to Garfield School. We knew the college was there. We knew that there'd be traffic there. And there's a lot of traffic out in front. We don't park our vehicles out front. When we come and go, we go to the back because it's busy during school time. And I can't imagine how much more busy it's going to be. But my thing is just that whole thing is, you know, I have 2 young girls. They're not going to be playing out front. This is done. I mean, I'm against it. I don't like the idea of having the right there. I'm not against the dormitory at all. I think they probably need it. But I know we've tried this before in this town with the Parsonian with housing people and maybe this nursing home, and it hasn't went through too. And it also feels to me like it's all been a sneak kind of thing, a rush. Let's get the zoning thing passed tonight so we can, and then we'll worry about the rest of the stuff later. It just doesn't seem like, it seems like to me like the cart's been ahead of the horse the whole time here. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Anyone else? Not. Public comment to a close. What does the commission comments on the subject?
Sure. Before I was on the city commission, I served on the planning commission for 9 years, and in that time, we never really dealt with anything quite like this. But if there was a structure that was going to be substantially different than the neighborhood it was going into, you try to create some sort of a buffer between the existing neighborhood and the new development. Now, I don't think that's a requirement as far as the zoning regulations, but as a courtesy to the neighborhood, that would be important. I always tried to look at it to consider the impact on the neighborhood. And in this case, the impact on the neighborhood would be pretty severe. Mr. Baldwin himself said, who'd want their family living around a bunch of 18 or 19-year-olds? Well, there's a lot of houses there that have families in them. Now, I've got 18 and 19-year-olds that live right across the street from me, college kids, and they're well behaved, so I've got no real problem with them. The size of the building and the height of the building will have it's unavoidable. If that's built, it's going to have a negative effect on the properties that are close to it. It's just unavoidable that that's going to happen. And a zoning issue is the effect on the neighboring properties. In this case, this could have an effect on properties way outside of a couple of 100 feet from it because of the nature of the thing we're not supposed to talk about, the financing mechanism. But in the latest issue of the Kansas Government Journal, Parsons has the highest total mill levies levied in the city by all units, not just the city of Parsons, but every unit, the LCC, 503, 506, the county and the city, and whoever else might have property taxes. Our total mill levy in the city, for a city of the first class, which I'm not going to go into trying to define that, there are, I think, 23 cities of the first class based on population in the state of Kansas. The total mill levy is 212.218 mills. Now, one of the biggest hindrances to growth in Levesque County and in Parsons is our high property taxes. The next highest total mill levy is Fort Scott, and they're only 191.7, so they're like, who's good at math? 212 less than 91. They're way less than us. So this could, if everything went perfectly, it could be an asset because in years to come, this building would pay property taxes, and that might take the load off of some of the rest of us. It could be an asset, or if everything did not go perfectly, it could be a millstone on this, because I don't know if anybody's calculated the potential impact if on not just the two properties within 200 feet, but on every property, if, you know, what is the potential cost to me as a property owner in Lebec County to subsidize this? I don't know, but I do know that high property taxes is one of the biggest hindrances to progress and growth in Lebec County. So that concerns me a lot. But to me, I guess the whole thing really does hinge on, well, it doesn't hinge on this, but the critical issue is the interpretation that we need from the state fire marshal concerning parking spaces. That is a really important thing, and you know, apparently educated people differ on how to interpret that. Me being an uneducated person, I'm not going to try. But my interpretation would be to trust the planning commission, and I would uphold their decision at this point. And if you know, if you want to run it by them again sometime, I would certainly encourage you to do that. But I would uphold them at this time.
Commissioner Perez.
I have random points too. One of them being top of the list is what Tom says. Parsons is the highest mill levy in all of the Class 1 cities. If you go through your book there, it's a strong, I mean, it's probably with the top 4 or 5 in the entire state for
Now, there are a lot of second and third class cities that run higher, and in fact, in Lebec County, the only city with lower taxes than Parsons, or a lower mill levy, is Altamont, and it's not a whole lot lower. So if you move to Oswego thinking you're going to get lower taxes, you're in for a rude surprise. If you move to Erie thinking you're going to get lower taxes, you're in for a rude surprise. You gotta be careful where you go if you're looking for just lower taxes. It's a problem in all of Southeast Kansas, but we're high.
The reason for that is our population base is diminished through the years. We, going by the same spreadsheet that you're looking at, I think there's probably 200 or 300 people less from that publication than the year before. 10,143?
10,164.
That's a problem. And there's no evidence of anything, any tool that we can put in place to change that trend. Now, I do look at LCC as being a legitimate force for Parsons. It's got the makings to bring in young people. Mike said it earlier, if you can't bring them in, though, if their mom and dad's aren't going to let them come somewhere else to live, as opposed to a freshman in a little one. I would have a hard time with that. I do love the fact that there is a company out there that is willing to invest in our community, and I don't want to lose that opportunity. I just don't think it's good business sense to miss that opportunity. I do support, and I do think there is an enormous value in young people coming and experiencing college life. I think that the Lebec Community College is a viable solution to train and pick up our next, or to improve the education of our next generation, as opposed to going to KU, K-State, Washburn, WSU, even KSU. It's a very affordable way to become educated. One of the things, as a businessman, that I see in Southeast Kansas is educating the workforce to come in and run manufacturing machines, well, be doctors, be lawyers, whatever you have to re-educate our masses, the new young generation that comes into the next workforce. We've got a way to do that with that community college. I think it's important that we don't penalize a class of people, that being students, for being young, feisty. I don't see that as an argument to affect the zoning change. I think it's unfair that we would put that burden on our youth. And then the hardest part to say, but it's really the truth. No matter how this decision goes, there's going to be collateral damage. There are going to be citizens that don't like the fact that such a bold move to go forward with such a project is going to affect their property, their livelihood, their view of the neighborhood. And I don't like that, but I think that that's just something that will be there. I am not going to override the planning committee, but I would certainly exercise my suggestion that we kick it back to the planning committee to let them listen to the changes that were made from Bloodstone. They said they've addressed all of the sticky points that was brought up with the planning committee. Gives them the opportunity to tell their case or to listen to see what the fire marshal has to say about it. I personally think that the fire marshal is, in my view, the judge on what's right or wrong on that. I don't know who to believe. They say, Bloodstone says that they do this all the time. I believe that, and I'm good with that. But I also can't discount the fact that we have experts in our control that are uncomfortable with that and have conflicts. Somebody's got to be the judge. I certainly am not the guy qualified to be that judge. So I would have to defer that to the fire marshal. You know, we talked about the sticky points, so I mentioned the sticky points. I'd like to see what the plan is to make the water and sewage, the utilities, what has to happen to that to make it a viable option for Bloodstone or to rezone. And then I'd also challenge the planning committee to ask the question or find out what would it take? What are you comfortable with on a building in that spot? You know, if it's not a 4-story, then what is it? So, and I'm done.
There's a lot of soul searchings went in personally going into this project. I want to let everybody know crystal clear that I am for the project. The caveats to that is what I'm having trouble with is all of the things that I've been hearing. Now, I've heard a lot of things going on with the neighborhoods, the landlords, the college. The college is landlocked, no different than the city of Parsons. The college is one of the things that the community should look for, no different than 503 school district. We should look forward to and everybody support behind the college for growth, for everything else. That being said, I understand what kind of issues it's going to be for the landlords, for the neighbors and everything else. I am not comfortable with the magnitude of this at all. I'm not comfortable with the 20-year 84%. And after what I heard tonight, possibility, I understand, I'm talking personal. These are the things that I have to, as a person, as a commissioner, I have to look at. Like I said, I'm for the dorms. As I said, the parking is an issue, the fire lanes, making sure everything was done. Latest plans had been drawn up to complete the parking, which was an issue also. Now that I've also heard that it's turning from a possibility of a dorm to a family dwelling, that threw kind of up a red flag to me. I thought this was a dorm project. I understand Bluffstone's constraints and the laws that I wasn't aware of that. I thought this was going to be strictly for dorms. Tim, you did mention in the email that we're having issues with the constraints of the property. Being that the parking was one of the issues, you also going to try to purchase that other to meet that requirement. We still haven't got anything from the fire marshal, and I'm being a fireman of 29 years, I understand the relevancy of what possible problems that they could face. Sprinkle building makes it safer, but it doesn't guarantee it 100%. There's a whole lot of issues in here. Again, these plans were submitted. They haven't went to the planning board. I think the planning board needs to sit down and review all these again. So my recommendation at this point would be kick it back to the planning board, have them review it. I'm not comfortable. Twice since I've been on the board, we overrode the planning commission's recommendation, but it was never to this magnitude or scope. With this sitting in front of me and looking at it, I think I'd be crazy to go against them at this point in time in this juncture. But I want everybody to know that I'm for a dorm project. As the paper quoted Bluffstone as being, let me word that, frustrated. That's exactly where I'm at this point. This has been cart before the horse since day one. If this thing would have been progressively done as it should have been done, we wouldn't be having this meeting right now. Now I understand the parking associated with neighbors and all the other aspects that has pretty much brought this project to a halt we wouldn't be discussing it now. So that's my frustration to this project. So I think we can move forward. I think everyone comes to the board. I think we can get this project done. I want to see this project done.